Hi everyone, how are you? Hope you've been well. I wanted to come on today to talk about a topic that's been coming up for me, but it's also a topic that a lot of you folks have had questions about, and that topic is compersion. So, not only for some is this an unusual experience, it might even be foreign to our vocabulary or emotional landscape, as it tends to be an unfamiliar term and experience for many people. But I want to talk about today what it is, what compersion is, how to nurture this emotion, and how it might benefit you in the end, regardless of what type of relationship you might find yourself in. So, whether that's a romantic relationship, friendship, situationship, but generally, the term compersion is used in the context of polyamorous or ethically non monogamous relationships. But I think that we can extend it to all relationships. And simply put, compersion is when you can feel happy for your partner or partners feeling happy. And generally, that happiness is due to some kind of external source. And that external source, I mean, it could be a positive situation at work. It could be developing a new group of friends. It could be your partner experiencing fulfillment and pleasure in another sexual or intimate experience of some kind if you're in a polyamorous relationship or a non monogamous relationship. It might be your monogamous partner experiencing some kind of work wins. Whatever it is, it's generally also referred to as a term of empathetic joy, right? So feeling that joy that someone else is experiencing that generally doesn't have anything to do with you or something you've done. And so feelings of compersion can feel like some have described it like a warm feeling in your chest, or maybe your belly relaxes, or you feel a softness in your shoulders or your neck. Even sensations of joy or pleasure or even excitement or arousal. Really, the sensations can vary depending on the individual. But in the context of polyamory and ethical non monogamy, um, we don't generally think of, and even in monogamous relationships, we don't necessarily think of compersion being our first response, right? When we hear about our partner having another romantic or intimate experience with someone else. And so really you're probably thinking, yeah, that's true. In fact, for a lot of us, our learned and conditioned response tends to be jealousy, right? Especially when we hear about our partners flirting with other people or connecting intimately or coming back from a date, maybe if we're in a polyamorous situation or relationship and our partner comes back after having gone out with someone else and feels great about that and even wants to share it, right? Like we can have kind of mixed feelings about that. That can be difficult to hear. We can feel insecure. We can certainly feel jealous, but we can also feel these simultaneous feelings of jealousy and compersion. So the two are not mutually exclusive, but can certainly coexist. And I think that that's recognizing that this is a big part of it. I actually read an article recently that discussed the ways in which jealousy is actually a survival response, a mate guarding behavior that protected individuals thousands of years ago. That actually could, right, like feeling threatened and our jealousy could be a survival response that could protect us, right, when our communities or societies were threatened. And so that learned conditioned response is certainly more likely to come up rather than feelings of joy and pleasure, right? Like compersion brings up. So, um, jealousy can be a great messenger for us and can really lead us to discovering what parts of ourselves need some work. And it's also a responsibility to determine when our own jealousy needs to be mended outside of our relationships. And we need to be careful not to ignore or suppress the feelings that arise of jealousy, but it is a delicate balance in recognizing when it's our emotion to deal with and when it's something that needs to be brought to the partnership and discussed. Um, so that's something to keep in mind as well. So, as unusual as it might seem at first, feelings of compersion can be cultivated, right? And it can be nurtured in us. We can learn how to take pleasure in our partner's pleasure, in our partner's happiness, in our partner's fulfillment that may or may not have anything to do with us. Um, research has shown that it leads to greater relationship satisfaction. And I would argue that even more individual satisfaction and greater senses of self esteem and confidence and autonomy and joy. So the first step in cultivating compersion is to recognize when its counter opposite, right, or counterpart arrives, which is when jealousy arrives. We don't ignore it, as mentioned. We don't shame ourselves for feeling it. We recognize jealousy and again acknowledge that it can coexist with those feelings of pleasure or even arousal for our partner's happiness or our partner's sexual experiences if we're in an ethically non monogamous relationship. And jealousy is normal. It can catalyze awareness, and with practice, we can transform jealousy into compersion. Secondly, we want to practice, if we can, these feelings of compersion in non romantic relationships. So, like in general, in the day to day, what comes up for you when people share their wins with you? Are you able to fully take pleasure in their happiness, in their success, in their joy? And if not, what are these emotions pointing to in your own life that maybe need some attention, loving attention, or self compassion ourselves? So, compersion can strengthen, I believe, in the end, our own senses of self, catalyze deeper intimacy and connection in relationships, and ultimately help us to find greater senses of joy and pleasure, not only within ourselves, but with our partners and with others. So I am so curious to know what you all think about this topic of compersion. Has this been one of your experiences before? What type of relationship are you in? What are your thoughts on this topic? What questions do you have? Let's start a conversation. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you soon. Take care.